good morning to you guys. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Brighton Ncube. Today on the show, we're looking at the issues of current affairs, politics, and everything happening in our various communities. And today, I want to reflect on 1 year into office and for Bulawayo, what has our mayor been doing and what are my plans for the City of Bulawayo. So I want to reflect with that. As our guest this morning is Your Worship, the mayor of City of Bulawayo, that's Councillor Sen David Coltart. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the show this morning.
Thanks, Brighton. Good to be with you.
Right, you're coming as a mayor in Bulawayo. This last August, you became a mayor for Bulawayo, where Bulawayo is facing a water crisis. How have you been dealing with the issue of water crisis in Bulawayo?
First of all, let me stress how bad that crisis is. Our dams are sitting at 31%. Nyamandlovu aquifer is operating at below 50%. That situation is further exacerbated by the fact that gold pannas have ravaged most of our catchment areas, and so even if we have moderate rains, we're not guaranteed that a lot of that water will even get to our dams. On top of that, our water distribution network is dilapidated. It hasn't been adequately maintained. Some of the pumps at Nema are 50 years old. For example, the pipeline from Nema to Tuli Reservoir was designed to have 8 pumps. Only 4 of them are functional. So everywhere you turn, you can see that we are facing a major crisis. And whilst the government is building Gwashangani, the reality is that water will not come on stream for some years yet. And even when it does, it's unaffordable. So we face a very serious crisis, in fact, a potential catastrophe. If we have another rainy season, this coming season, like the last one, we will literally come close to running out of raw water. So water has become my major #1 priority. We have developed in the course of the last year a plan of action, both short-term and medium-term. Our short-term plan is to rehabilitate the pump stations at Umzungwani Pump Station and Nyankuni, but critically we have to rehabilitate and expand the pipelines from Nsisa and Nchabez dams. Let me explain. We have 6 existing dams in the southeast corridor. 4 of them are very low. 3 are either decommissioned or about to be decommissioned. Most of our water sits on 2 dams at the periphery, namely Nsisa, which is a large dam with 43% capacity at present, and Nchabez sitting with 53% capacity. The problem is that the pipelines from those 2 dams are deficient. And so we face the very real possibility that the other 4 dams could dry, and that we've got water sitting in these 2 remaining dams that we can't access in sufficient quantities. So our short-term plan is to rehabilitate those pipelines so that we can at least deliver water from those dams. Tied into that is Kami Dam. Now, Kami Dam is quite controversial. Yep. A lot of the public don't want to use that water, even if it is made available. But it is a large body of water, very close to the city, and we need to look at a plan to purify that water and then construct a pipeline from Kami to Magwekwe Reservoir. So those are the short-term plans to avoid us literally running out of raw water. The medium-term plan is on glass block, or what is also known as Bopomo Dam, which is to the southwest of Imbalabala. This is a dam which was originally conceived in the 1980s, but nothing has happened. And we are now at an advanced stage in terms of getting that dam constructed. Our long-term plan resides in Gwashangani. Gwashangani is a good dam, but it requires a 257-kilometer pipeline that has to pump up a head of 600 meters. That is in itself, aside from the construction of the dam, a major engineering project which will consume a vast amount of electrical power. If we get our short and medium term plans worked out, we will only need Gwashangani water in 2040. So it's a good long-term plan, but it's not a short or medium-term plan. And these are the policies and plans that we've been working on in the last year.
You've met the Minister of Finance, Professor Ncube, and also you've met the Minister of Local Governance. Spoke about the issue of Bulawayo water crisis, and your plea has been to declare Bulawayo water shortage area. Speak to us more about that. What's their response in terms of supplying or giving funding to Bulawayo to solve this water crisis in Bulawayo?
So let me deal with the issue of a water shortage area. The previous council in 2019 anticipated the problems that we are facing now, and they requested the then Minister of Local Government to declare Bulawayo as a water shortage area. The reason why that is necessary is because once a city is declared a water shortage area, the city is then entitled to go to third parties, to international banks, to international institutions, to secure the finance necessary to address these short, medium and long-term projects that I've spoken about. Unfortunately, the Minister of Local Government turned down the previous council's application. The new council, soon after coming into office, made a similar request last year. It was not dealt with by the minister, and then ultimately the government, at the end of the rainy season, declared a national crisis. And its response to us has been, well, the city is covered by that water, by that national declaration. Our point, however, is that our city is in a unique position, different to other cities. If you go to Harare today, you will see that Chivero and Darwindale are full. Their problem is not with raw water. Their problem is in the purification of that water and its delivery to residents. And the same applies to most of our major cities. If you look even at Gweru, Gweru has raw water. They're not going to run out of raw water. Mutare has ample raw water, and most Claw Dam in Kodoma, for example, has plenty of water. And in that sense, our city is in marked contrast to other major urban centers. We are running out of raw water, and that's why we argue we need to be treated differently, and a specific declaration needs to be made regarding Bulawayo. That would in turn enable us to go to the international community, because the international community says when we approach them, well, the government doesn't see it your way. They have not declared the city as a water shortage area, and that precludes them from being able to assist us financially. So it is a critically important declaration which needs to be made.
When you came into office, I think in August, you spoke about reviewing some of the contracts that have been given to the council, given out by the council, one of them being Titi. Speak to us more about Titi, and also entwine with Ekotini project. Where are we in terms of Ekotini project now?
Okay, so first of all, let me preface my remarks by saying that I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer in the city for 41 years. I believe in the rule of law. I believe in the sanctity of contracts. And that underpins, I'm not going to act in a unilateral fashion, in a fashion that sort of disregards binding contracts. But my undertaking to the electorate was that I would look at both, and I have looked at both. The TTI contract is a binding contract. I have issues with some of the terms, which I don't believe are in our best interest, but they are lawful terms. And I'm bound by that. So what I've been doing on TTI, I believe that some of the behavior of the marshals has been egregious, has been against the spirit of Ubuntu, clamping the wheels of elderly people, of disabled people, of sick people, and forcing them to walk 5 blocks when they are on death's door is unacceptable conduct, and I've made that very clear. And so we've been meeting with the management of TTI to persuade them to modify their conduct, to comply with the existing regulations. There's a statutory instrument which was based on a resolution passed by the previous council, which became law in November 2023. We had no input as this current council into either that resolution or that statutory instrument. We are bound by that law. And what we're saying to TTI is that they must comply with that. that law only entitles them to, for example, clamp people in terms of breaches of the law which are set out in that statutory instrument. So in essence, what we're doing, and let me stress, it is a work in progress. There is still a lot of dissatisfaction regarding the way that contract is being implemented. So our task has been to ensure that that contract is implemented in as a humane manner as possible in the circumstances. And that, I stress, is ongoing work. We need to achieve a balance. It was very important to restore law and order in the city centre. There was mayhem, and that has been restored. And that's on the one end of the spectrum. But on the other end of the spectrum, it is important that that contract be implemented in a manner which respects the basic rights of residents and ensures a productive business working atmosphere in the centre of the city. So that's TTI. Regarding Egodini, Egodini is another contract entered into well before this council came into power. In fact, that contract was first finalised in 2012. When we came in August, September last year, that contract was dead in the water. If you visited Egodini, there'd been no construction going on there for at least 2 years. And there was a serious breakdown between the contractors and the city council. We have transformed that. We have engaged the contractors. And as you can see, they worked very quickly to get phase 1A working and finished and working. Since then, we've encountered further problems. Let me explain the issue to you. Informal vendors, which is the focus of phase 1A and 1B of Egodini, require certain key ingredients. They obviously require their customers. They require the presence of commuter omnibuses, because the practice of people is that they work during the day and on their way home they want to buy their food, buy whatever goods, and then get straight onto taxis to get home. They don't want to have to buy their goods and then walk a long distance to find taxis. And so the critical ingredient is the presence of these three ingredients, of the vendors themselves, the taxis, and the customers. And what has happened is that there is lawlessness on our roads. Taxis went to Egodini, but they have been allowed to operate out of 6th Avenue and Bash Street. And so a lot of the taxi operators who want to support Egodini have found that their competition is in 6th Avenue. They're not getting their customers there. And so that is undermining Egodini. And what we're now in the process of doing is trying to restore law and order when it comes to taxi ranks and bays. We are speaking to TTI, ironically, to get TTI to expand into 6th Avenue so that bays are painted there, and we start literally clamping people who are parking.
But according to your view, Senator, on the issue of vendors and also on the issue of community omnibus, if you go to 6th Avenue, they find those combis parked there, then doing their touting. And also if vendors, if you walk around 6th Avenue, they find many vendors there. What could be the possible reason why they don't want to go to Egodini anymore?
Well, I think it's partly because they, at Egodini Mall, they have to pay rentals for their spaces. On 6th Avenue and elsewhere, they pay no rentals. There is lawlessness. So that's the attractiveness for vendors. And what we need is to restore the rule of law, both in respect of illegal vending and illegal taxi bays. Once you've restored that order, and my point has always been, I don't want to come in with a harsh conduct of simply stopping vendors and stopping taxis without providing an attractive alternative. Egodini provides that attractive alternative. If you go there, you'll see that there are lock-up bays for vendors, there are roofs, there's solar lighting, there are clean toilets, It is a structured, orderly environment, a clean environment. And that's what we have to aspire to in the city. But unfortunately, we have got these bad practices that have now become part of our culture in the last decade, which we have to break. And one of the ways of breaking that is to stop the lawlessness in places like 6th Avenue, knowing that there are alternate remedies. But we can't just rely on Egodini. We have to look at other market sites so that we can accommodate the now well over 1,000, in fact a lot more than that, vendors, so that they've got attractive working environments, attractive to themselves, attractive to customers, with close proximity to the taxis. When we establish all of that, we will restore sanity to the central business district.
If you move around town right now, you're going to see many shops are being partitioned into different shops, grocery shops and so on. And then if you move around town, you see people are doing cooking on the street pavement and so on. Some are urinating on the pavement and so on. In terms of licensing of the council, how easy, how open is the council in terms of giving out licenses to vendors, be it to community omnibus? How easy is the office here?
The licensing laws are there, the offices are there. If you can enforcement, we have had insufficient numbers of municipal police, for example, to enforce our licensing here. We're in the process of dramatically increasing the number of municipal police. But the problem doesn't end there. Our municipal police have no powers of arrest and no powers of fining. If they find people operating illegally, they have to engage using by the Republic Police. And that has been problematic in the past. It also means that you don't get the revenue from those crimes. They go to the police. So this requires central government to have a resource. And it doesn't just apply to vendors. It also applies to the lawlessness that prevails on our roads in the city. If you take the city, for example, like Cape Town, you'll see order on the roads on which you're vending. On the roads, it's because the city of Cape Town has its own municipal police, with their own city municipal police cars that ensure that speeding regulations are respected and that there's general order on the street. We don't have that power, but it requires central government to allow our city, not just our city, but right across the country, to have that power so that we have effective powers of enforcement. When we have that, then we can adequately police, for example, our licensing and a whole range of other values that are being disrespected.
In your first year as a mayor of Bulawayo, you've been moving and traveling across the world. Let's speak about the issue of twinning cities. What are some of the gains or benefits that you have managed to win over the past year in terms of twinning with other cities and partnering with other cities?
So we have 3 cities we twinned with: Polokwane, Durban, and Aberdeen in Scotland. And, quite frankly, none of those twinning arrangements at present are yielding much benefit to the city. There's been some productive engagement with Polokwane. A delegation from Polokwane came up to trade fair, and there's been useful exchanges between the 2 cities. And there are very useful synergies because it is the first major city in South Africa. When you travel south, there are linguistic and cultural synergies between those 2 cities. But beyond that, we really haven't exploited that twinning arrangement. As you know, in November, I went to Aberdeen. I was in Britain, and I met with the Lord Provost, which is the Scottish equivalent of mayor. And we discussed how there may be mutually beneficial arrangements between the 2 cities. I wrote again recently to the Lord Provost, but quite frankly, there's very little to show for that. One of the things that I'm trying to encourage, I've reached out to South African Airlines, and I've been speaking to FastJet to see whether we can't get at least a weekly service between air service between Durban and our city. As you know, there are very deep-rooted cultural ties between the 2 cities. And I feel if we get a direct air service between the 2, that might result in increased tourism and might result in increased business connections. I'm also working very closely with the mayor of the city of Cape Town, and I would love to see an air link between Bulawayo and Cape Town. Obviously not a daily link, but if we had perhaps a twice weekly link, those links are critical to fostering those ties.
Now let's move on to the issue of debt. I know Bulawayo's city council is owed around over $50 million by debtors, be it the residents, be it the government institutions. Speak to us more around the issue of debt, in terms of the debt, and also how Bulawayo is owed, and also what can be done to encourage people to pay their rentals on time.
When I came into office, I was advised that the city was owed $51 million by ratepayers, by government, by businesses in the city. And although we are eating into that, much of that has been undermined by the fact that the city has been locked into the use of the Zimbabwe dollar. Our accounts had to be in Zimbabwe dollars, and you'll appreciate that with the depreciation of the Zimbabwe dollar, that affected our balance sheet, because many of these folk owed us $51 million, but that was converted into a Zimbabwe dollar currency, and in real terms, it has dramatically reduced. So a major problem that the city still faces is the fact that we are locked into these two currencies. It hasn't been as bad since the advent of the ZiG, because the ZiG has, at least on the face of it, maintained a lot of its value. But that is a historical problem. We have increased the amount of revenue which is being recovered from residents, but it is a major problem. And it is now being exacerbated in particular by our inability to deliver water to residents. As you know, in December last year, we imposed 120-hour water shedding. Most residents are now only receiving water 1 day a week, and yet they're still getting water bills. And the problem that we face is that a lot of residents are saying, well, why should we be paying our rates when you're not delivering the service? And we find ourselves in a catch-22, going back to the original problem of water. We don't have sufficient raw water to deliver. That's why we've got water shedding. And so it is a problem which is almost impossible in the short term to overcome. All that we can say to residents is really appeal to them. If they don't pay their rates, if they don't pay their water, then we don't have the resources needed to fix the problem. And so let me use this opportunity again to appeal to residents. Please pay your rates. We are trying to install an efficient administration which is going to use the money they pay wisely in their best interests. But if they don't pay, we are paralyzed.
I remember attending a budget review meeting in what for the other week. You spoke about the issue of innovative ways the council is coming up with in terms of payment. I can pay online and so on. Speak to us more about that issue there of making payment easy at my own comfort or from my own home.
A huge problem that we face is that we've got antiquated systems. I still receive paper bills, and often weeks, if not months, can go by without me receiving my rates bill. That's my personal experience. That is an antiquated system. In this modern age of access to apps and the online capacity of most of our residents, the use of email, we need to transform that system in a variety of ways. Firstly, we need to be sending out accounts by email. The city of Johannesburg does it. Every resident, every homeowner in Johannesburg gets their bill online gets their bill through an email. So you dispense with the use of having to print accounts and having to use the postal service to deliver accounts. And there's no excuse for residents. You know when the email is dispatched, it is received. So that's number one. Number two is if you as a resident want to check your account, at present you can't do that online. If you go to our website, if you try to check the status of your account, to check what the account debit is and whether your credits, whether your payments are reflected. You can't do that. We've been working very closely with our finance department, and just this past week I had the assurance from the finance director that we hope by the end of August residents will be able to go online and check the status of their accounts. That's number 2. Then number 3 is the ability to pay your account. We've made some physical changes recently. For example, we've just opened a new payment office at Trade Fair, which means that a lot of people in the western suburbs have an easier means of paying their bill. But we have to take that a step further. We need to ensure that accounts can be paid online through your bank so that you don't have to go in physically to do that. That system is still not working well enough. It's unacceptable, quite frankly, in this day and age, that the city doesn't have that facility. If you have internet, for example, you can pay an internet company online, and the same applies to a whole range of services. You do not have to go in physically to pay an account, and that's what we're working towards. We're not there yet. Unfortunately, on the online payments, we're some way off being able to achieve that facility, but that's what we're aiming for.
Your worship, I've been crisscrossing Bulawayo in terms of all wards, interviewing different councillors from the City of Bulawayo this year. And one of the key issues that they're raising is the issue of the roads, the poor state of our roads. And one road that is bad, that came up through the budget review, was the Gwanda Road, John Topic Road, right? What are the plans that have been doing in terms of fixing our roads in Bulawayo?
So before I get to roads, I need to put it in context. Our 3 objectives now are: number 1, water; number 2, sanitation, and tied into that cleanliness of the city; and number 3, to deal with informal vendors, to provide them with acceptable markets and to restore law and order. Those are our core objectives, and there's a broad consensus in the council and amongst management in that regard. Turning to your question now, you have to see roads in that context. Roads are critically important, but roads are not going to kill as many people as people literally running out of water or dying of cholera. And so we do need to put it in that context. We have a magnificent roads department. Let me say this. They are working against the odds, and you will have seen in the city the efforts that they have made in terms of clearing verges and tidying up our cities and pothole patching and the repainting of lines. But the reality is that they are working within the context of a minimal budget. Last year, we received $800,000 from Zenara, and that was converted into Zimbabwe dollars. Now, bitumen, asphalt, the trucks that are used are all paid for in hard currency. You can't pay for those in Zimbabwe dollars. And yet our roads department has had to operate within that context. And I believe that they have done a remarkable job. But once again, we appeal to central government. I've been told, and I don't know whether this is correct, that government has spent something like $180 million on roads in Harare in the last few months, roads to the venue of the summit. And that is wonderful for us to project ourselves. But there needs to be equity in the country. We can't spend $180 million in one city and spend $800,000 in another city. There's a further feature to this. Decades ago, the owners of vehicles in our city paid licenses which went to the city council. And the city council used that revenue to maintain roads in the city. All of that money now goes to central government, to Zenara. And we have to literally beg Zenara to transfer some of the money back. We pay as a city way in excess of $800,000 per annum to Zenara, and yet we get back a pittance. So there needs to be national equity, and we need to see our roads in that context. There's a further aspect to this. There are certain roads in our city which are deemed to be national roads, which are not the responsibility of the city. The Harare Road, the Victoria Falls Road, the Gwanda Road, the Matopus Road, the Plumtree Road are all national roads. If we look at the state of the Johannesburg Road, the Gwanda Road at present, the state of the Victoria Falls Road, the state of the Matopus Road, they are in an appalling state. They are dangerous, and it is incumbent upon Zanara to make those a priority. And let me broaden the ambit. A critical road in our country is the Bite Bridge to Victoria Falls Road. If we are to attract tourists from South Africa, and it is a huge potential market for this city and the whole southwest of the country, not just Victoria Falls, to expand the usage of Wange and the Matopus, that road needs to be rehabilitated. Tied into that, of course, is the business traffic. So that road needs to be a major national priority. You can't just go in and pothole patch, because what we see happening, for example, particularly on the Victoria Falls roads, is that potholes are patched and within weeks they are undone. So that needs to be a national priority, as well as those national roads within the city itself.
Right, also talking to other councillors, there's the issue now of tower lights across the city, whereby ZESA now is removing, cutting down those tower lights, the asks to light, and also putting solar there. What's happening there, putting meters on those lights? Were people consulted around that issue?
Well, tower lights, we are working, for example, with some private companies that have agreed to work with us on tower lights. I'm not quite sure what you mean by...
No, ZESA is now removing they're putting meters on those tower lights without consulting residents. Are you aware about that situation?
To be frank, I'm not aware of that, and I will need to be briefed to comment adequately on that issue.
Let's move on now to issue of COP. You went to the COP summit, and then what lessons did you borrow from COP there? I know one of them issues that was close to your heart is the issue of recycling, reusing, and so on. But Bulawayo like uses a lot of plastic and also plastic bottles. What's your issue there around the issue of COP summit? What are your key lessons that you can borrow from the COP summit?
So let me turn to that second objective, that of sanitation and cleaning up of the city. The city is in a disgusting state. In terms of the amount of litter, but beyond that, our sewage works are working at about 20%. Tied to that, we are not utilizing some of the inherent assets of the city. The fact of the matter where it's located in the tropics, the fact that we have land around suitable for solar power, the fact that we have sewage plants that lend themselves to biogas products. The fact that we have a railway system, that we are the headquarters of the railways, and we have railways which go to Gweru, which go to Livingston, which go to Francistown, which go to Bite Bridge and Polokwane. And we really need to be the center of this entire region, not just Zimbabwe, of southern Zambia, of northern South Africa, of western Botswana, and of the whole southern half of Zimbabwe in terms of waste management. So we're looking at present at a substantial waste management setup located close to Ngozi Mine, an integrated unit that will draw plastic that is used within the city, but also potentially draw plastic generated in Livingston and Victoria Falls and Wange and Francistown and Bite Bridge and Gwanda and Gweru, possibly even Polokwane. Do you know an interesting fact? That Sweden imports used plastic. It's incredible. Sweden imports used plastic from the rest of Europe. And we have a unique opportunity in this city to use our rail network to do exactly the same, to import plastic, use the plastic generated in our city, turn it in a waste to heat transfer, an energy generation, but also in recycling plastic into plastics which can be used, aggregate for cement, aggregate for road construction, and the reusable plastic for the construction, for example, of water tanks. And so that is part of our vision, that we can completely transform the nightmare that resides at Ngozi Mine now and turn it into a job creator, and turn it into something that can utterly transform the future of the city and the region. So a lot of those projects have come from COP28, the attendance in Dubai, but have also come from environmentalists who are looking at, as I say, this integrated unit of waste management but also using the potential of biogas and solar electricity in our city.
Now let's turn to young people now. There's the climate fund that you came up with in COP28. Speak to us more about that climate fund. Some young people are saying, oh, I feel left behind. We're going to touch into that, but speak to us more about that climate fund for young people.
So the climate fund is a direct consequence of my attendance at the COP28 summit. As you know, I met Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York, who has an organization called Bloomberg Philanthropics, based in New York. And they very generously provided the city with $50,000 US. Launched on Friday the 9th, the Youth Climate Fund. Now, it's a relatively minimal amount of money. It's $50,000, given the fact that we've got hundreds of thousands of young people in our city. There's a limit to what that fund can achieve. What we're hoping is that this will inspire young people to realize that the future lies in their hands. That if they engage in projects to, for example, forest our entire city, to plant trees, to assist us in gathering up litter, to assist us in the cleaning up of our river systems, they guarantee their own future. So we see this just as a start. We had hundreds of applications. On Friday the 9th, we announced the winners. There are going to be many young people disappointed because they put a lot of work into their applications, and unfortunately we just couldn't award everyone. Our independent scrutinizing team, I think, has chosen the best applicants, the ones that will use the money most effectively. But this is a trial. We hope that this will lead to further grants in future, not just from Bloomberg, but perhaps from other climate change organizations, and so inspire a new generation to utterly transform our city. Yeah. Let me digress just for a second to give us some vision. If you look at our city from a satellite, on Google Earth, you'll see a marked difference between the high-density suburbs in the west and the low-density suburbs in the east. There's a color differentiation. One is green, the other is brown. And that's our challenge. We have to, in the coming decades, totally transform our high-density suburbs. We need to have trees, we need to forest that entire area, because not only will that absorb carbon generated by our city, but it will completely transform the environment of the high-density suburbs, making them cooler, more productive areas, nicer places for the people living in those areas to live. That can't be my generation. We're too old, because trees take decades to grow to get to that state. But we've got to inspire this coming generation to see that vision, to embrace it, and to start implementing it themselves.
Yeah. Now let's turn to alcohol and drug abuse from young people. Young people have been abusing drugs. Bulawayo has been reported one of the places there where young people are abusing drugs. You know, the Vuzu parties, alcohol abuse and substance abuse. Speak to us more about that. What's your plans to try to curb that abuse of drugs by young people?
That is a major problem, and we can see it. I get completely distressed when I drive around our cities to see the number of particularly young children out of school at present. It is heart-rending. And one knows that those young children, if they don't get a basic education, they have no hope. And they turn to drugs and alcohol for comfort. And of course, it's already afflicting the current generation of teenagers who feel that even if they get a good education, if they get A-levels, if they get even a tertiary education, there are very few jobs for them. Unfortunately, we need a dramatic change to our national macro economic policies and general policies to transform the investment environment. I was speaking to a miner yesterday, someone involved in the formal mining sector, and he was telling me that because of endemic corruption in the mining sector, there's very little investment in our country from some of the blue chip Western mining companies. We have mining companies who are prepared to come in and ravage this country, take our resources, extract our resources, and take that money to their own countries and leave environmental degradation. The point I'm simply conveying to you, Brighton, is that there's no quick fix solution to the issue of drug and alcohol abuse. There need to be these fundamental macro changes to our business environment to make our country a more attractive business environment so that we can attract people who won't just come and extract our minerals, but who will build factories, create call centers, for example, create jobs, and in that way give hope to young people. That is the most important thing to do. That is the beginning of dealing with the drug and alcohol abuse. And in that context, there's very little that the city can do in that macroeconomic environment. What we are trying to do, and let me come back to those three key areas. Our vision is to make this city the most attractive investment environment in Southern Africa. We have to do that by securing water supply. We have to do that by ensuring that there's health. And we have to do that by ensuring that the formal business sector is not swamped by the informal sector. Unless we achieve that foundation, we can't hope to attract the investment needed to revitalize our factories, to get new businesses going, to get things like call centers operating. When we do that, then we can start tackling drug and alcohol abuse. You know, to be frank, you can have an array of projects to encourage young people not to get involved in drug and alcohol abuse. You can get counseling services, but those just deal with the symptoms, not the root of the problem. And that's where we have to begin. So, you know, whilst our clinics and whilst we work with youth organizations are happening and are very important, we have to deal with those fundamentals if we're going to tackle the problem in the long term.
Your Worship, there have been many events happening in Bulawayo, arts events, entertainment events, one of them being Munch and Sip, Cutting of House, Picnic and Chill, you know, many events, you can name it. One of them happened last Sunday in Bulawayo, ZITF, and there have been many complaints from residents who say the issue of noise, the issue of young people dancing all night and so on. How do you then balance our rights as I want to sleep, I also want to enjoy the nightlife? As the mayor, what can you say to the event organizers about balancing our rights?
So the first thing I want to do is speak to the young people watching this. And remember who I am. I'm a father. I have 4 children. I have 8 grandchildren. Some of my children are remarkable dancers. My son is where did that come from? It didn't come from my genes, but it came from my family. In other words, we're not a staid family. We love a good dance. I love it when young people enjoy music. I love music myself. I'm not a staid person. I want our young people to have a good time. So don't think that I'm an old grandfather trying to stifle the fun of young people. And I also want to encourage arts and culture in our city. If you listen to what I say this is one of the most vibrant cities in Southern Africa in terms of our art and culture. You know, we have some of the deepest history. This city goes back to 1840. It's a lot older than most cities in Southern Africa. Virtually all cities are younger than our city. And that is reflected in our art and culture, and we need to encourage that. But there needs to be balance. And there needs to be balance in the following areas. Irrespective of your religion, or your background, or your age, most people work from Monday to Friday in the city. That's a reality. It's a fact of life. And because of that, most people need to rest on a Sunday evening, so they are fresh. That's got nothing to do with religion. It's not about the Sabbath. It's about practicality. And so when we have music shows on a Sunday night that go through to 1 a.m. on a Monday morning, in close proximity to working people, and those working people can't sleep on a Sunday night and wake up tired on a Monday, on an unproductive, that is not in our best interests. We need to change that. We need to change the time. Secondly, we need to think about the venue. Do we have to use venues that are located right in the middle of residential areas? Are there not venues that can be used beyond and can be used in a way that don't actually destroy the venue? One of the venues I have in mind is Hartsfield, for example. It is a rugby stadium. If you fill that rugby stadium, it doesn't affect the turf. Rugby players don't mind if there's a bumpy turf. It is a huge stadium as well. Aside from the residents to the south of that rugby stadium, it is actually surrounded by open space. There's bush to the east. There's another playing field to the west, and a road, a busy road. And I'm not saying that Hartsfield is the only venue, but I'm saying that we need to select venues that are going to cause less disruption to the lives of surrounding people. So that's the discussion that we need to have as a city. We're not going to ban this type of activity, but we need to achieve balance so that the rights and the interests of young people are respected, but also the rights and interests of other people are also respected. It can be achieved.
Worship, in closing, what can you expect in this coming months in terms of your key priority areas? You spoke about issues of sanitation, issues of water. What can you expect from your council in this coming few months?
So, I come back to my number one priority. My all and our all-consuming priority is water. I need to restate, we face a potential catastrophe. Our dams are at 31%. Our catchment areas are ravaged. Unless we have a remarkable rainy season, this coming rainy season, the problem isn't going to go away. So our entire focus is on those short-term needs of the rehabilitation of the pumps at Mzungwani and in Yankuni, but persuading government to release the money they promised so that we can urgently rehabilitate the pipelines from Nsiza and Mchabez. At the same time, we've got to get Nyamadlovu up to full capacity. Just this morning, I met an Indian delegation looking at Kami Dam. We need urgent work to try and access the water from Kami Dam, at the very least for secondary purposes, but we need that water. So that's the short-term focus. The medium-term focus is to get Glass Block Bopoma Dam constructed. We've made progress this year. Government in principle has accepted it. Zinwa has accepted it. We're very close to a contract between Zinwa and the construction consortium. All the plans are there. We need cabinet approval, and so our focus is to get cabinet approval. Once cabinet approval has been obtained, we then have the rather large task of raising $120 million US. Government has said it doesn't have the money. I'm already in contact with Afri-Exim Bank and the African Development Bank and other international partners to secure the funding for that, and that will be our priority. But let me stress to you, Brighton, this is all consuming. If in the coming months we do not get these short-term measures and these medium-term measures underway, we face a potential catastrophe. And we all have a role to play. Residents have a role to play by conserving water as best they can. They are already doing it through their incredible resilience and patience in only getting water 1 day a week. But there are other ways that we can save water. Then we as a city have a role to play, but government has a role to play as well. And we actually beg government to accord this the attention it deserves and to give it the urgency it deserves.
Your Worship, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. We've been watching the Breakfast Club right here, looking at the current affairs of issues happening in Bulawayo and beyond. The mayor has been reflecting on what's been happening in the first 1 year of his term in office, and talk about many things: issue of water crisis, issue of sewer, issue of roads, and so on. Hope you guys enjoy the show, and please do follow Cite on all platforms: your Twitter, your Facebook, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. From myself, Brighton Ncube, it's bye for now.